You walk into the bank on a Tuesday morning, same suit you always wear to these things, same polite smile you give the receptionist. You sit down across from a loan officer, hand over your ID, and wait. You don't know it yet, but the next 90 seconds will be decided by three digits you've never once written down, never framed, never even fully understood. A number that decides which apartment you're allowed to live in, which interest rate follows you for the next 30 years, and, more quietly than anyone admits, how strangers speak to you the moment they glance at a screen. Today, that number is about to open a door for you. But it wasn't always this easy. Rewind 10 years. And this same person, sitting in the same kind of chair, was hearing a very different sentence. This is the story of everything that number changed, one level at a time. Level 1, the blank page. You're 19. You've never missed a payment in your life because you've never had anything to pay. No credit card, no loan, no history at all. To a bank, you don't look responsible, you look invisible. And invisible is treated the same as risky. You apply for your first credit card, a basic one, nothing fancy, and the app just spins. Then a message. We're unable to approve you for this offer at this time. No explanation, no number to call, just a wall with no visible door. You try to rent your first apartment. The landlord looks over your application, nods politely, and says the words that will follow you for years. We'll just need a co-signer or a deposit that's a little higher than usual. A little higher turns out to be triple. Not because you did anything wrong, because on paper you don't exist yet. Then it gets worse, and because a bad start moves faster than no start at all. You miss one payment on a phone bill. Just once. Life happens. A job that paid late, an account you forgot to check. But the system doesn't know your reasons. It only knows the date. And now your score, the one you didn't even know you had, drops into the low 500s. Suddenly, doors that were merely closed start locking. Car dealerships quote you an interest rate that makes the salesman avoid eye contact while he says it out loud. 18%, not because the car is worth more, because the bank has decided you are worth less trust. Insurance companies, the ones you assumed only cared about your driving, quietly raise your premium too. Most people never learn that part, that a bruised credit file doesn't just follow you into a bank. It follows you into your car insurance, your phone plan, sometimes even a job application, where a hiring manager glances at a background report and forms an opinion about you before you've said a single word in the interview. At this level, the world doesn't hate you. It's simpler and colder than that. The world just hasn't decided to trust you yet. Level 2, the long climb. 2 years later, you've paid on time, every time, for 24 straight months. 24 months of small, boring, unglamorous discipline that nobody claps for. Your score climbs into the low 600s, and the world notices, just barely. You apply for a credit card again. This time, approved. Not the good one, with the airline miles and the metal edge. The basic one. The one that starts you at a $500 limit, like the bank is handing you a smaller ladder and watching to see if you'll fall off it. You go to buy a used car. The salesman is warmer this time. Not friendly exactly, but no longer treating you like a liability. The interest rate comes back at 11% instead of 18%. It doesn't feel like a win in the moment. It just feels like relief. Relief is a strange kind of progress. Quiet, almost invisible, easy to overlook. You try renting again. The landlord runs your report, glances up, and this time doesn't mention a cosigner. Just a normal deposit. 1 month's rent like everyone else. Nobody throws you a parade for being treated normally, but you notice it. You notice the exhale. At this level, something subtle shifts in how people speak to you. The loan officer stops reading off a script and starts making small talk. The apartment manager stops explaining the process and starts just processing it. You're not impressive yet, but you're no longer suspicious. And in the world of numbers, the gap between suspicious and simply unremarkable is enormous. Most people spend years in this level without realizing it's the hardest one to climb out of. Because the improvement is slow, and boring progress rarely feels like progress at all. Level 3, the quiet upgrade. By your late 20s, your score crosses into the high 600s, then settles somewhere in the low 700s. You don't feel any different. You still eat the same breakfast, still drive the same commute, still argue with the same group chat about where to eat on Friday. But the world around you has quietly rearranged itself. You apply for a mortgage pre-approval, half expecting to be laughed out of the office. Instead, the loan officer pulls up your file, nods, and says the sentence you didn't know you were waiting to hear. You're actually in a really good position here. The interest rate she quotes is nearly 2 full points lower than the one your coworker got last year, back when his score was sitting in the low 60s. 2 points doesn't sound like much. Over a 30-year mortgage, it's the difference of tens of thousands of dollars. Money you'll never see leave your account because it was never going to be charged to you in the first place. That's the strange magic of this level. The savings are invisible. Nobody sends you a check for the interest you didn't have to pay. You just quietly keep more of what you earn every single month for the rest of your life. Credit card offers start finding you instead of the other way around. Not just approvals, invitations, cash back, travel points, a card with a metal edge that makes a small, satisfying sound when you set it on a restaurant table. None of it changes who you are, but it changes how quickly people say yes to you. At this level, the world stops asking you to prove yourself. It starts assuming you already have. Level 4. The open door. Somewhere in your early 30s, your score crosses 740. This is the range financial advisors quietly call very good, a phrase so understated it almost hides what it actually means. You walk into a car dealership to browse, not even to buy. Within 10 minutes, a finance manager is showing you 0% financing offers reserved for a small percentage of buyers. Offers that were never advertised, never listed on the website because they're not meant for everyone. They're meant for people who look, on paper, like a sure thing. You apply for a premium credit card, the one with the annual fee that used to make you wince. Approved instantly, with a credit limit that makes you pause and reread the number twice. You call a bank about refinancing an old loan, expecting the usual hold music and polite stalling. Instead, a representative reviews your file and says, almost casually, "Honestly, with your profile, we can probably beat what you're paying now." Nobody explains to you out loud why this is happening. There's no ceremony, no plaque on the wall, just a series of small, warm interactions that used to be cold, calculated ones. Landlords stop running extensive checks and start just trusting the number. Insurance renewals arrive with lower premiums, and you don't even notice until a friend, further down the credit ladder, mentions how much they're paying for the exact same coverage. At this level, you're not famous. You're not wealthy necessarily. You're simply, quietly, one of the people institutions have decided is safe to bet on. And the world, as cold, mechanical, indifferent as it usually is, rewards safe to bet on with a kind of ease that money alone can't always buy. Level 5. The red carpet. Fewer than 1 in 4 people in the country ever reach this range, 800 and above. The number itself starts to feel almost decorative, because past 800, the practical difference in interest rates barely moves. What changes is something harder to measure. Respect. You walk into a private banking office, not because you're a millionaire, but because your bank quietly moved you into a different tier of service once your file crossed a certain threshold. Someone remembers your name before you say it. A mortgage broker doesn't just approve you, he competes for you, calling twice in 1 week to make sure you know he can beat the other offer on your desk. You mention, almost as a joke, that you're thinking about buying a second property someday. He doesn't laugh, doesn't hesitate. He just says, "When you're ready, call me first." There's a strange, quiet power in being the person institutions chase instead of the person institutions screen. You stop filling out lengthy applications. You start getting phone calls that begin with, "We noticed you might qualify for." None of this means you're rich. Plenty of people at this level live in modest homes, drive practical cars, and would never be mistaken for wealthy at a glance. What they've built instead is something quieter than money, and in some ways more useful. Proof. Years of proof, compounding silently in the background, that when they say they'll pay something back, they do. And it turns out, in a world built entirely on trust between strangers, that kind of proof opens more doors than most people realize, long before the money ever does. Here's what almost nobody tells you at any level of this climb. A credit score was never really a measurement of how much money you have. It's a measurement of how predictable you are. Whether you do tomorrow what you said you'd do today, whether a stranger, a landlord, a lender, An insurance company that will never meet you in person can hand you something valuable and reasonably expect to get it back. That's it. That's the entire system boiled down. Not wealth, not status. Trust, expressed as a 3-digit number, updated monthly, quietly following you into every room you'll ever walk into. The 19-year-old with no file isn't untrustworthy. He just hasn't had the chance to prove anything yet. The 35-year-old with an 800 score isn't necessarily wealthier than his neighbor. He simply spent years being boring, consistent, and on time, in a world that rarely notices consistency until it's rewarded with ease. So the next time that number crosses your mind, whether you're proud of it or avoiding it or seeing it for the very first time, remember what it's actually asking. Not how much do you have, but can the world count on you? And the honest, slightly uncomfortable truth is this: you've been answering that question with every bill, every payment, every quiet decision, long before any bank ever asked it out loud.